I think there's a few trends and they're all actually quite positive. The first trend is that investors have really been buying mutual funds again with a vengeance. So the sales of mutual funds are up a lot over last year, and last year was already a very strong year. So if you look at 2013 first half, gross sales of mutual funds is about up 40% and net sales is up about 30%. So there's a very strong demand for mutual funds. The second trend is that income funds really dominate the mutual fund sales. So investors have really been looking at an income fund, a yield fund, really to offset the very low interest rate environment. But this has not come through just bond funds. Multi-asset income funds, so funds that combine different asset classes to provide a yield, have been part of where investors have focused. The third trend is that really, even though equity markets have performed very well, investors have not returned yet to equity funds. And this is a bit different from Europe and the US, where equity funds have seen stronger sales. So it shows that although equity markets have done well, investors by and large are still quite risk averse and have not really returned back to buying a higher risk equity fund. So I think those are kind of three elements where you see some very distinctive elements for the Asian mutual fund market. I think UCITS are very, very relevant. If you actually look at the fund sales this year, again, 3/4 of the sales have come through UCITS. Large global mutual funds is what people have been buying, and the income funds that have been sold in the market have generally been the UCITS funds. Well, the big other theme in the market is around the negotiations between the Hong Kong regulator and the mainland Chinese regulator around mutual recognition. And mutual recognition would mean domestic funds that are being allowed in both markets. And if that kind of comes through, I think that will have a major change to the market and might be the beginning of a more regional cooperation. So the main priorities are really linked to the mutual recognition. We as an association want to work with both regulators, the regulators in Hong Kong and in China, around helping them how we can best achieve a platform that can coordinate the sales of mutual funds across Hong Kong and China. I think the next step with that will also be how we involve Taiwan and become really part of a Greater China initiative. And all of this then comes into play also linked to the renminbi. So the renminbi internationalization and Hong Kong being the key offshore market for renminbi means that we want to make sure that the product developed around renminbi and through our HKIFA, so the renminbi qualified foreign investment scheme, is going to be a success in Hong Kong. A lot of quota has been allocated by the Chinese authorities. We now need to make this quota work and make that work in good investment products for the investors in Hong Kong and beyond. So those would be the two areas where we focus at the moment as a Hong Kong Investment Fund Association for the Hong Kong investment fund market.